Hello, hello. I'm so excited to hear your story, Emma. So I remember actually when you first posted in the community about your client moving you to La Jolla, California, and I have wanted to hear your story ever since. I'm really excited to be here. Um, I guess, but like, why don't you just kind of take us through like who you are, where you started, just really like the whole journey, and I'll ask you questions all along the way.
Okay, thank you so much. It's such a
Yeah.
pleasure to be here speaking with you and connecting with these members of our community. I watch these success stories for inspiration, and I still do. So I'm kind of stunned to be in the camera this time, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, so I started my journey with Write Your Way to Freedom almost a year ago now. I graduated from college last June. So I had went ahead and invested in the course shortly before graduating, but I didn't start it. I didn't start working on it until early June. And I devoted my summertime to it. So by August 1st, I had my website done. I was ready to begin connecting with clients. Yeah, I felt very confident thanks to all that you had taught us, Sarah, already just from a few months of devoted learning. And yeah, August was kind of rough because I was both so proud of myself for the steps I had taken forward, especially so quickly after finishing a major chapter of my life in college. But I wasn't getting any discovery calls booked. I was getting a lot of responses actually on my cold emails, but none of them quite affirmative or too
Mhm.
interested. So I just kept going. And also this month, during the month of last August, I had a plan to move away and leave my mom's house where I was living after graduating, but it fell through in the first week of August. So I was without that plan, without copywriting clients, like feeling, yeah, just really confused. And during this whole process of choosing to start a business after graduating instead of going to grad school or getting a job like everyone else I knew, and I really leaned heavily on the support of my best friend, who is truly, from my perspective, the only person who fully believed in my inevitable success choosing this path.
Wow.
So I'm really grateful I had her, but at the same time, I was receiving a lot of criticism and doubt from pretty much everyone else in my life. A lot of friendships were fracturing because they were just so openly critical of my choices, and I just really couldn't tolerate that. Yeah, it was like too early. I kept thinking to call me a failure or not having had achievements or like yeah, so it was a really yeah, I know. It was really painful, honestly. And the whole process has taught me a lot about my ability to stand strong for myself and to trust my own path, even if not everyone else around me like sees that yet. Things did get easy. Yeah, sorry, were you gonna say something?
No, no, keep going. I have like so many questions, but I'm holding them.
Yeah,
But you're on a
but
roll.
this is kind of the timeline. Yeah, things did get easier after August 30th because that's when I had my discovery call with Thomas, who is now a very close friend of mine, and he's the
Yes.
co-founder and current president of As We Wake, which is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit based here in La Jolla. After just an hour and a half call, he invited me to fly out literally 3 days later and stay here and meet the team and do some yeah, some practice projects to see if it was going to be a good fit for me to join the team. And then, yeah, I continued to live back home with my mom in New Jersey this past fall and officially made the move here on January 1st, thanks to Thomas's encouragement. And I guess, yes, just to continue that the little piece I brought up already about others' criticism and judgment, I would say it got easier in the short term after I was offered this huge opportunity because then people, including my own really close family members, were like, oh my God, she is successful. But I had to see myself as a success the way that my own best friend was able to, even before any of these results were here, way before. Still living
Mhm.
in my mom's house without a plan, before I had a single client. I believed in myself as much as I do right now. And I think that is really what helped me get through emotionally. And now it's a lot easier that I'm surrounded by a community of people who really see me and who really support everything I do, including professionally. So that's easier, but it just took time and it's been quite the process, as you can hear.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, your story is amazing. There's so many things. I was just like actually like taking notes.
I
Spent a long
love
time
it.
to ask her. So one thing I want to ask you about, because it's amazing to me when people do this, because it just like was not on my radar when I was graduating college, is what led you to one, sign up for another course, decide to like build a business, not get a job. I was like stuck in that traditional
Mm,
path mindset. So where did that come from?
mm. I feel much of it is thanks to you. Much of it is thanks
Ah!
to you, Sarah. I had been seeing your ads, especially on Instagram, for months before I went ahead last April and purchased the course. Like that was 5 or 6 months after getting these ads that were so encouraging. And I would literally have yeah, I would have moments of upset or panic, thinking, and just a lot of fear was coming up during my senior year of college, as everyone, including my professors, was telling me that essentially my skills were only valuable in the context of grad school. Like my passion for reading and writing would only transfer in this very niche academic way, and I would cry or something, or I would be really upset, and then hours later I would see an ad that was like, you can make money as a writer, or like you can make $10,000 a month doing this thing that involves writing. And I was stunned, and it took me a while to frankly like believe it and do my own research and get fully on
I
board.
get it. Same.
But like I needed, yeah, right, like I really needed that reassurance in the background. And I feel the decision, now I can see from my vantage point in time that the decision to move toward Write Your Way to Freedom was really, yeah, after so many little decisions over the years and a lot of deep questioning as to what I really, really wanted, what I truly wanted for my life, even if I wasn't going to have any more the validation of my peers, my professors, my bosses, my family. Like
Yeah.
that to me was actually worth trading for what I really, really wanted. And yeah, I guess relatedly, I did between between my junior and senior years of college, I did spend 3 months living in an eco village in Costa Rica where I did my yoga teacher training. And I would say that time also completely just blew open my sense of what was possible. Because these people were living way outside, either getting a job or grad school. Like it showed that there's actually many more options for life. And then doing the research, thanks to the ads I was seeing of yours, into what it's like to run a business, to me gives the possibility of the freedom I saw in that eco community and the time flexibility and the location freedom, with also like the intellectual striving and the money and the work that I still am passionate about. So it's kind of like I, in my own life, am always trying to find a balance, I guess, between those. So it's an ongoing process, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's wild. And I mean, obviously, I resonated with that part of your story so much
Mhm.
because it was very similar to mine. In fact, it
Yeah.
still like blows my mind at how little we learn about like what opportunities are available in
Yeah.
traditional school, but then also in college. It's like
Mhm.
worlds apart from reality, I feel. And
Mhm.
yeah, so that's like serious kudos to you because not a lot of people actually hear that and believe like yes, it took
Mhm.
some believing, right?
Yeah.
But you still believed it a lot more quickly, I feel like, than the average person. Like you're like, okay, I know. Myra just said, I wish I knew this at 21. Like I
Mhm.
because it's so ingrained in us to go to grad school, and especially what did you major in college?
Oh, great question. I double majored in English and history.
Yeah,
And
so they're like, you're
yeah.
basically gonna be a professor, you're gonna be a teacher, you're gonna be a writer. What were
Mhm. Something like that, yes. And I went to Williams College, which is a really remarkably great school in the Northeast in Massachusetts, in these beautiful mountains. And so much of that place and time I loved. And but also now that I'm out of it, I see how much it was actually really painful to be in a place that reinforced this very limited view of what's actually possible, even though I was around the most brilliant young people, right? Like all the time, the most brilliant and well-educated professors, it felt almost limiting to some aspects of myself. So
you?
there was this little tension there. And yeah, I also did see the whole, study these things and then become a teacher or professor. That whole process very alive in my own family. Both my parents were high school English teachers,
Mm,
and both of my mom's grandparents both of my mom's parents, so two of my grandparents were college English professors. So it's
Mhm.
very much like the way. I actually believe that when my sister graduates college this spring, she will go on to do grad school and become an English professor. And I feel that that can be the right path for some people, but I just like knew it shouldn't. I identified it as not mine any longer. Yeah, so I'm really glad there are options available, like what you've created for us in the world of copywriting.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And something that you said that also stood out to me was how friendships fractured even during this period where they weren't believing you. Was
Yeah.
that you think because a lot of your friendships were people who have just like gone the traditional path, believed that, and so they just were unaware of the opportunities that were available, or
Yeah, or they didn't believe me. I remember with more neutrality now, sitting by this beautiful lake a few days before graduation with these women who I loved and lived with during my final years of college. And they were all reassuring me that, like when your business fails, you can do something else. You'll still have marketable skills. I hadn't even created the business. I hadn't even launched the business. I barely knew what I was even like really getting myself into because I hadn't devoted myself to it yet, being so busy with school and my campus jobs and other responsibilities. And it was just that level of like the sense of my inevitable failure. It was such a huge contrast from the way that, again, like my best friend who went to a different school, we're childhood friends. She was like, yeah, she just saw, she held true to the vision of my own success in whatever ways I wanted, even when I faltered, even when it faltered in my own eyes. And
Mhm.
has really taught me just a higher standard for how I allow people to speak to me, especially friends. I suspect that those other girls and I might meet at another point down the line, right? Maybe we'll have more compatible chapters of our life, but it's just been, yeah, actually helpful to like take a little space. And now I have friendships who are where I feel more supported. So it's okay. It's just been quite the process.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge lesson to learn, especially at that junction in life where it was just a huge transition. I always, talk about, and with my little sister when she was about to graduate college, I was like, heads up, this
Mhm.
caused me the biggest existential crisis ever.
Yeah.
Because up
Yeah.
until then, everything's kind of planned out for you. And then all of a sudden, you like the whole world opens up and you're like, what's real? What's true? What's for me? What's not for me? And, um, and people again just like have such a limited view of like what's possible in general.
Mm.
So that was a massive, massive lesson, it sounds like, for you in friendships. And I don't know. It just kind of goes back to the thing I'm sure you've heard me say a million times, but just making sure you consider the source, right? Like, I'm sure
Mhm.
none of those people have started a business, you
Yeah,
know? Like
of course.
they, yeah. And so it's like,
Mhm.
what truth are they actually speaking
Mhm.
when they are giving you advice or saying that you're inevitably going to fail? Like, they don't know. They don't.
Yeah, of
It
course.
probably brought up a lot of fear for them,
Yeah.
honestly. That's what
Mhm.
I learned.
Yeah, a lot of fear, a lot of mixed emotions that as personal as their words felt weren't really about me. They just reflect so many of these belief systems we've inherited. And I know like even my mom's fear in the beginning, I think she once lovingly compared me starting a business to like jumping off a cliff without a rope, because that's how scary it was. Like really, and like those words strike me so viscerally, physically. Um, that's how scary it was. Like no one in my family has ever done anything like this. It's
Mhm.
really scary. And I know that she and the other friends and even my professors who made unhelpful remarks were really just trying to protect me. And they were leading from yeah, they were trying to protect me through their fears. It didn't end up being what I needed, but I can greet that with the compassion you reference. So that's
Yeah.
also an important part of the journey.
Yeah, I'm glad you got to that place because I
Yeah.
experienced the same or similar things, not the same thing, but just realizing how people give advice from their own fear and their own experience, right? Like, that most people only give advice from the path that they've taken. And it leads into such like limited results, limited advice. Um, so after you graduate, well, you got, you worked through the program, you built your website, and then you had to do client acquisition. And this is a really important thing I think to dig into, is that month of client acquisition where you didn't, it took you a month to get your first client. That's hard. That's the hardest part of this journey. And there's so many lessons that come out of it. I'm always talking about how you're building invisible momentum and you just got to keep going, and you don't realize that you're actually, putting hooks out there and they're going to start biting, but you just got to keep going. What would you say to yourself during that process, knowing what you know now? Because it's tough. It's tough to do client acquisition when you're not getting a lot of feedback.
Mm. Well, maybe these words will be applicable to me now because I'm once again in a season of client acquisition, even
Mhm.
more deliberately and with more fervor than I have been recently. So, yeah, I'm it's good to remember the bright spots of it. Hmm.
Also, it's good to remember your own advice. I can't tell you the number of times in my journey where I
Mhm.
have learned a lesson, thought that I learned it fully, and then the same lesson appears. And then
Mhm.
I'm like going against the very advice that I give out and then learning the lesson again. And then I'm like, why don't I take my own damn advice? Why do I have to always make this so difficult?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it's nice to kind of revisit thoughts
Mhm.
like this.
Revisit. Absolutely. Ooh, I would tell the me of August and the me of now to really focus on any results that are perceived as positive coming from it. So in the past, when I've gotten responses, like really loving and generous responses from people that are a no, like I don't need this right now, or I can't afford this kind of service right now in my business, it's felt like not great to me. Like it's like struck me a little bit as either neutral or negative, but really it's amazing that they felt so connected to me and my work through the email that they even took the time to respond, because most people don't. So now I'm learning to see that as positive evidence, right? Of like, oh my God, I really am connecting with people already. And then over time, and as all the responses and come in and my emails continue to go out, a lot of them become yeses. A lot of so far, very blessedly, every discovery call I've had has led to a client. Like we've always moved forward past that step. I feel really, really blessed with the clients who I do get to work with. Their work truly inspires me, and I want to see more of it out in the world. So it's therefore very easy to do their marketing. And yeah, more of that I hope is coming through just the dedication. And I see it also as just good discipline practice, really, like because it does.
Mhm.
I feel very dull to just sit there and send those cold emails and update the spreadsheet and continue. But yeah, it's it's refining the aspect of me that can be very disciplined in that way, regardless of
Yes. And
yeah.
resilient, I think that's
Yeah.
another part of
Mhm.
it for sure. That's the thing that sometimes I have so many different things I like tell myself to get myself through tough seasons. And
Mhm.
one of the things that helps a lot is I'm like, most people would give up at this point. So if I just keep going,
Mhm.
like I'm going to outpace, outlast so many people who would just be like, this is too boring, this is mundane. Um,
Mhm.
I'm uncomfortable, whatever the reason is. And so yeah, for me, it also really helps to kind of like root into that, growing my sense of resilience and growing my sense of just like perseverance for sure. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share about what's driving your current motivation for client acquisition? I'm just gonna pop into some of the questions that are being dropped here.
Absolutely, for sure. So it's multifold, multifaceted. I feel at this point in time, I am settled now into my new home and community here in La Jolla. The first few months were rocky as I was learning how to balance work for this nonprofit organization, work for myself, and when I first got here, this cottage had no furniture. So like, completely basically renovating and filling this home, it just took a lot of time. I was kind of in work mode always, but I wasn't really moving the needle forward in my business enough in retrospect. So that's like another good lesson. It felt like I was just deflecting the tasks that came up every day instead of really, yeah, deliberately moving forward. So now I have more space and more time. I know how to navigate my time, and I'm sure of that more now. I want to gain more experience in the field, and I also would love to be making a bit more money. So all of these seem to point to client acquisition. I hope
Mm,
that is the person's question.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I
Mm,
think what you'll learn and what is kind of a secondary step that people learn in the process is that you kind of want to get to a place where you're not doing like a big push of client acquisition like it's kind of shown
mm,
in the program because that's exhausting. Nobody can sustain that. At least
yeah.
I can't. But you
Mhm.
want to get to a place where it's something that's kind of a slow burn happening in the background where you're
Mm,
just kind of
mhm.
like, oh, that person seems cool. I'm going to reach out to them. And that's how you kind of continue that momentum and not wait until you're like, okay, now I need clients, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so but that's really hard to do in the beginning because you're learning so many new things that it's really only the thing I think that can become like almost like a second hand, like a secondary process that you're just kind of continuously doing without even really thinking about it after you've like had a few clients and things like that. I want
Mm,
to address a question about how long after you started the program you got that first client because it was three
mm,
months, I believe, right?
just
First,
about. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important because there's a follow-up question about whether or not you finished the program when you got the client. But if you followed the program, then you wouldn't have finished the program when you got the client because you get clients way early on the process. Is there anything you want to speak to on that? Like, were you surprised at how quickly you were looking for clients? How did that feel?
Mm. First, I really appreciate your advice about keeping client acquisition ongoing in the background. That
Oh,
will be
yeah, let's do
for me
it.
to remember. Yeah, like that will be very important for me to remember even past the next few months of like more intentionally focusing in that. Yeah, just to continue that. That would have made past periods easier. So I really appreciate this advice. It's good to remember going forward. And as for my timing moving through the course, I believe that I started reaching out and sending cold emails when I got to that. Was it the third module, like pretty early, right? Like I did, as soon as I had the website ready-ish to go. Um, and then I felt always, thanks to your course, very confident in knowing that even if I somehow landed a project that was a little more unfamiliar to me, I could at that point watch the specific detailed videos that are later on in the course about like high level sales pages and writing certain types of email copy that convert. I've referred to those lessons recently in the last few months. So I really see it as a course that's never quite done, like completely checked off, but rather continuing to guide my understanding of things. We're currently completely redoing all the marketing materials, including the website here at this nonprofit in La Jolla. And I will be referring back to those lessons, especially as we write landing pages for our retreats and similar things, because the learning just deepens.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. And that's also why to kind of address one of the questions that came through about needing e-marketing results when pitching to a client. That's why you don't need that. Like you're, I love to say there's a client for you no matter where you are in the process, all the way up that ladder. And the way you're going through the program is exactly how it's meant to be. In fact, the people who come to me that are most confused are like, I just watched all the lessons. I finished it and now I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh boy. Because it's the action, right? It's like the taking steps and then because it becomes so much more real and solid in your mind when you're actually taking action, right? So, um,
Mhm.
I don't know. It sounds like you use the course exactly how it was meant to be. I'm
Pretty
very
much.
excited to hear that because yeah,
Yeah.
it's meant to be something that you revisit. It's meant to be something that you have as a resource and a community and support, coaches, editing, and all the support that you could possibly need to like continue to grow.
Yeah.
Um, so circling back about you wanted to talk a little bit about continuing client acquisition. Did you have any specific questions for me?
Oh.
Or would you just wanted to say that that was like a good thought or
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for that piece of advice, which still applies to me now at this point in time. I'm really focusing on cold emails now since my website is SEO optimized and ready to go, but I know that takes a bit of time. And yeah, I'm mostly focusing on outreach. Maybe I will have more questions for you. I'll
yeah,
let that
you can
in
always
mind.
ask.
I'm
That's a
seeing some
great. That's also, always you have a way to ask me questions every week. So it's always good to ask things like
True.
that.
Yeah.
But it is a big realization, and you're at a very like natural place in your journey where you're realizing things. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that you knew that it's very,
Mhm.
very normal.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, and I would love to also talk a little bit about nonprofits because I know we get a lot of people who are interested in nonprofits. What do you have a niche? What is your niche?
Mhm.
You want to chat a little bit about that?
Great. And I saw a question come in also about niche.
And if it was the
Yeah,
same as when you started, and yeah.
yes. And how did I come to that decision? So the niche I'm currently working in for copywriting is what I call New Earth. It's a
Mm,
term that a lot of people don't know, but the people who do really like immediately resonate with me, I find. It means a lot of different things to different people. Some it's like a utopic vision of where our society will go broadly. For others, it just addresses a more wholesome way to live in tune with our current planet, hence New Earth, like a new relationship to our current Earth. Um, I like it a lot because it encapsulates in a very pretty phrase all the different kinds of organizations and brands I would love to work with, from coaches, therapists, healers of any kind. And I've worked with many of those. That's been most of it so far. To eco-friendly businesses, yeah, e-commerce sites that are doing their work sustainably. Yeah, also like it could also include yoga teachers or yoga studios, anything of that sort. Um, I would say it didn't really feel like a decision I arrived at so much as it arrived at me. Like when I was watching all your videos on niche, the same phrase just kept coming into my mind over and over and over again. And I did, of course, do research into the sort of wellness and spiritual niches I'm combining through that phrase. But it just felt like the natural decision. And so far, all of my clients have said that that's really what made me stand out to them, is like they felt like, oh, immediately this woman shares some values with me, and that will come through in the marketing. So yeah,
yeah.
there's a lot to learn there, but yeah.
That's amazing. So I love that. That's one of my favorite things about hearing about everybody's different niches is how people like you really make this process your own and you get to take your passions and the things that you love,
Mhm.
like make it the thing that you write about. I have never heard of that niche before.
Yeah.
So that's the
Yeah, it's totally
first
new.
for me.
Yeah.
But I just like I absolutely love that. So are a lot of them nonprofits or is it like a mix?
It's a mix. It's mostly not nonprofit. So far as we wake, which is the one rooted here in La Jolla, is the only nonprofit organization I've worked with. Most are businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Mix. I like that a lot because I
mhm.
know again some people just they want to do nonprofits and sometimes those can be tricky to
Mhm.
write for, but there are definitely nonprofits that like understand the value of marketing because that's how
Yeah.
you bring in
Mhm.
donations and everything that they need to kind of like stay alive, grants, things like that. So,
Yes. Yeah.
um, do you have anything else you want to add about nonprofits? Just on that, or
Mhm.
just like what it's like working with them, what your thoughts or experiences are? We maybe not.
Yeah, I saw a very interesting thread actually in the general discussion part of our community weeks ago when someone saying that they wanted to work in the nonprofit sector, but they were worried that those organizations don't have any money to pay them. And I would say it's kind of a misnomer. And here as we wake, we're trying to prove that label false in a way. I'm really, frankly, pushing a more businessy model on this organization because I know the good we can do in the world with more resources. I'm
Hmm.
very decisive about that. And we already are, like, we are already as a team, in addition to living all here in La Jolla, like travel monthly together and host retreats all over the world. There are certainly resources flowing. And I would say, yeah, many nonprofits understand today that there need to be money moving around, including to well-trained copywriters, right, to continue getting the word out about their mission. Um, I hope
Hmm.
maybe that helps.
That
a little.
was so insightful. I'm so glad I asked that question. Because that
Yeah.
makes sense to me. Like you still need to operate like
Yeah.
a business, like,
Mhm.
because yeah. Anyway, so I'm really, really glad I asked that question.
Good.
Do you think you could share a little bit about what, if you noticed any patterns or anything in particular about like your pitches and cold emails,
Mm.
feel like we're especially strong or really helped you with landing discovery calls?
Okay, good. I would say I'm still working on it. I looked actually recently at the template I used, which landed me this gigantic opportunity and was what I was using for the first month I was doing outreach, which was the month of this past, yeah, August of 2023. And I was like, oh my gosh, really? Like that's not as strong as the one I have now. Like even so I guess I guess the insight there is sorry, a little
No,
bit
take
of a
your
cough.
time.
Yeah, even what even our first few drafts can be strong and impressive to people. Like I connected with many new clients through that first cold email template, and now mine is stronger. I would say in regards to another question I'm seeing, this person saying that they feel they need to have results in to onboard new clients. I would say I like kind of didn't let me hold that. I didn't let that principle hold me back too much. Again, I sort of begun connecting with this organization that wanted me to become the marketing director already. Like that was my first ever connection, and Thomas knew I was new at this, but he trusted me and he trusted all I knew through this community and course, that we would scrape together the information. Um, yeah, so basically I don't also one result is already your own website, probably. Like I felt like through the process of creating my own website, I learned a lot. And
Yeah.
that transfers immediately and
Yep.
gigantically to people as like really solid practice you're doing. So yeah, and then now that I have more results, it's easier, but yeah, the cold email thing gets better over time.
Everything gets better over time. It's like pushing a car that's at a standstill, right? You know, you have to build that momentum. And it's
Mhm.
so hard at first to see that it's actually getting anywhere. But you're
Mhm.
like pushing it and it's a slow roll. And then eventually, like, you get another client, you get a client that maybe people recognize in your niche. Your portfolio pieces get stronger, your cold emails get stronger, you start to click. And then before you know it, you're like off to the races.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's just one of those things that if you stick with it, if you stick through it and get support and feedback and resources, like it's so, so, so doable. Um, so I don't know, I just love your story so much. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to share? Or I have one last question for you, if you want to
Oh,
jump in
so
that.
sweet. Mm, I guess I'll hear your question first, perhaps.
Well, I just really love to hear, and we kind of touched on this, but I love to hear from people like if you could go back and like have a little chat with yourself, back when you were thinking about it, chatting with your friends about it, and you could like sit yourself down and tell yourself some things that you know now, what would
Mhm.
that look like?
Mm. Wow, to really trust myself and keep going, I
Yeah.
would say the advice that always applies to when I was struggling more then, especially, is to continue to really take care of my physical body as much as I can, to try to let so much of the anxiousness that did claw at me during those times go. I did a pretty good job, like as much as I could. I'm also a yoga teacher, so that practice definitely kept me feeling grounded within myself. But yeah, I would tell me of 8 months ago or 6 or 12 months ago just to keep going and to trust myself. I felt for a while now, in this way that's very both esoteric and practical, that the true desires that are written on our hearts are ours to be lived. And I feel like my life has been showing me this more and more, right? That when we take very bold action in the direction of what is truly ours and what we truly want, some goodness in this world can respond. And I would just tell myself to keep trusting that. Like at times it felt like I was the only one who was seeing that. I was the only one who was doing it. I felt very alone, but I see now that I was actually, yeah, right on track and not behind either. So I would just tell myself to keep going, to take heart, really.
That
Yeah.
is a huge one that you are right on track. You are right on
Mhm.
time. I can't tell I get so sad for and
Mm.
frustrated when people are like, I'm behind, I'm behind. I'm like, you're
Oh,
literally never behind.
yeah.
That's one of the biggest lessons I have learned in entrepreneurship that continues to happen, you know? And I love that you touched on that. Were you gonna add something?
I think that's most of it now. Yeah, I feel like also the repetitive action is what has really led me to trust myself more and more, is like saying that I will do this and will accomplish these things and then actually showing up and doing it all the time. I used to be less great at that when I was in school. I was always rushing before deadlines. I would turn things in late, and I have felt like a deeper relaxation just from knowing that like I trust myself to manage my time a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it's taken
Yeah.
practice. That is still ongoing.
That is amazing. I mean,
Mhm.
and it hasn't even been a full year. Like, I cannot
Mhm.
wait to see where you are in like 3 months, 6 months, another year, because
Mhm.
you've laid a really strong foundation, and
Mhm.
it's just going to keep getting the momentum continues. Like, it really does continue, especially if you keep showing up. So I am just so grateful we finally got to talk because I've been watching your story in the community. So thank you for taking the time to share it with us. I really, really appreciate you.
Yes, really, really. Thank you so much, Sarah. And in a bigger way, thank you for all the possibilities you show possible through your own experience.
Mm.
Truly. Yeah, I guess it's in response to a question you asked earlier during our chat, but Um, yeah, I am still hungry for more information as to how we women can find balance in our lives. And I was very inspired by the fact that you're so connected to your family, which is growing, I know. And also running this like amazing, amazing businesses that helps people. So yeah, just thank you for sharing your story since it's led to so many of ours. Mhm.
Hmm. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Literally like why I do what I do.
Uh,
It's like stories like yours. It's what makes me excited to get up and do this every day. So
mhm.
we have like the best freaking community, guys. It's
You
kind
really do.
of
Mhm.
well, thank you all for being here. And again, thank you, Emma. And yeah, we'll just keep sharing. I can't wait to see what the next chapter has for you because I know it's gonna be pretty amazing. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Sarah. It was a pleasure to meet you in real time here.
yeah, I'm real. We're chatting back and forth. Not just me being like,
Whoa.
okay, guys, let's talk about websites.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, thank you so much. And I'll see you in the community.
Mhm.
Bye.
Bye.